Hey guys, welcome to BOOKMAS. My name is JC. If you haven't seen my face before, today's video is my winter recommendations and TBR. For me, the winter time is December, January, February. So these are all the books that I recommend and that I hope to read in those 3 months. Now, full disclosure, I don't have that many books that I've already read to truly recommend for this time frame as far as like holiday reads and such. But if you watched my fall recommendations and TBR video, you saw that I structure it in such a way that I give you a glimpse into like the synopsis, what this book is about without spoiling anything. So I feel like the way I'm describing the books on my TBR, you'll be able to get recommendations that way as well if just the synopsis sounds interesting to you. So with that, let's get started with my recommendations. First up is The Christmas Murder Game by Alexandra Benedict. Now this is a mystery thriller. There are 12 clues, 12 keys, and 12 days of Christmas. The overall synopsis of this book is the annual but final Christmas game is being held at the, oh boy, Armitages? Guys, what kind of last name is that? But their family grand home called Endgame. Our main character, Lily, has no interest in participating in this family annual affair. But when her aunt passes away, Lily gets a letter saying that this year's games will provide answers to her mother's death along with revealing the murderer. Next up, we have One Day in December by Josie Silver. It involves 2 people, 10 chances, and one unforgettable love story. The overall synopsis of this is Lori, our main female character, she doesn't believe in love at first sight. That's just not her thing. But one snowy day in December, she locks eyes with a man outside of the bus window and she believes he's the one. She spends the next year trying to find him at every bus stop and comes up empty-handed until one day they are reunited at a Christmas party when Lori's roommate and best friend Sarah introduces him as her new boyfriend. Ouch. So you're following Lori, Sarah, and Jack as they go on this 10-year journey of friendship, heartbreak, missed opportunities, roads not traveled. Guys, this book, I would kill for it to be a movie. You do get duo POV from Lori and Jack. This was a beautiful story. Next up, you have The New Year's Kiss by Lee Matthews. This is a holiday romance. It is very fun, lighthearted, definitely a quick and easy read. And overall, you're following Tess as her and her sister head up to a Vermont lodge that their grandmother owns. Now, they aren't very happy about this. They're such typical sisters, but on the first day, Tess meets Christopher in the lobby. And all of a sudden, she's wanting to get out of her comfort zone. So she creates a bucket list to do just that before the New Year's comes. So her and Christopher go on this journey of doing all these different things on her bucket list, and it is just such a fun, quick and easy read for the holidays. Next up, we have Cause and Effect by Piper Rain. This is a duo author, duo POV, opposites attract, strangers to lovers Christmas story. The overall synopsis is you have 2 strangers that couldn't be more opposite end up on an unexpected cross-country road trip days before Christmas, where Murphy's Law is taking full effect. Anything that can go wrong does. To make it better, he's an Army Ranger, she's a baker. It's beautiful. Please read. I have to recommend this book as well. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Guys, this book, it's a romance. It's a warm hug. It's childhood best friends to lovers. It is second chance romance. Duo timeline. This book is everything. By the off chance that you don't know what this book is about, you are following Macy and Elliot, who were childhood best friends turned into more. And Elliot was Macy's first and only love. So you're following 2 bookish people who spent summers and weekends together at a house, and one thing happened many years ago and they haven't talked since. A decade later, they run into each other by chance, but in order to have a chance at love today, they really have to understand what happened all those years ago. These next 3 recommendations are because there is a new release coming out between December, January, February following one of the books. First up, I have The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Now this is a fantasy academic setting. The overall synopsis of this is there is this secret Alexandrian society that helps take care of lost knowledge amongst the greatest civilizations. So this academic magical group earns their spot to be there. So now we have a new class of recruits. So these 6 people have been recruited to take place as one of the 5 spots at the end of the year. So you get POVs from all 6 people fighting for a spot, and they all have these magical gifts that you get insights to, especially as they also learn more about their own gifts. And so book 1 is following that first year of working towards that spot, initiation type of thing. Book 2, the Atlas Paradox, takes off right where this one ends, and then the Atlas Complex comes out, I believe, in January. So I recommend reading this one and the Atlas Paradox in order to get ready for that January release. Next up, I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a whimsical historical fiction book. It is fantasy with a subplot of romance, but think of this subplot of romance being like Disney's subplot of romance in a movie. You know what I mean? Think of it like that. But overall, this book is following Emily Wilde as she seeks out finishing the first ever Encyclopedia of Fairies. She has one last group of fairies to target and learn more about called the Hidden Ones. So she takes off into this small northern town, middle of nowhere. She gets all the energy of the small town folk without, really liking her presence there. And she is joined ultimately by one of her co-workers. And it's just such a fun, whimsical story. Book 2 comes out in January. I have no idea what book 2 is supposed to be about, but I know it is a continuation of this world. The last of my recommendations is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Now, actually, I haven't read this book before, but Ruthless Vows, the second book, is coming out in December, so I figured it made the most sense to talk about it here. It is a YA fantasy romance, rivals, enemies to lovers situation. The brief synopsis of this: we have 2 rival journalists who find love through a magical connection, and they must go through the depths of hell in a war amongst gods to seal their fate. I have heard nothing but amazing things about this book, and I look forward to reading this and most likely Ruthless Vows. Now let's move on to my winter TBR. First up, I have Murder on the Christmas Express by Alexandra Benedict. This is the same author to the Christmas murder game that I already talked about. So this is a mystery thriller. There are 18 passengers, 7 stops, 1 killer. The overall synopsis is there is a former detective as a passenger on the train that is trying to find the killer while the train is stuck in snow in the middle of nowhere. Next up, I have Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. This is a sports romance, grumpy sunshine, slow burn, roommates, forced proximity. Guys, immaculate. The overall synopsis is our main female character dreams of having a music career, but that is derailed by her ex. She is now a live-in assistant to a grumpy goalie who she had a crush on in high school. Say less. Say less. Next up, I have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Now, this is yet another sports romance series, and you get another trope of grumpy sunshine, but instead of our typical trope where the guy's the grumpy one, she is. Our competitive figure skater is working to get on Team USA, but her figure skating partner gets injured. And who steps up to the plate to help? The hockey captain, of course. So he's working to help her train, and it goes from there. I put this on my fall TBR. I didn't get to it, but I really want to, so I'm putting it on my winter TBR, and that is The Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology. So this is a YA fantasy, found family, and a heist. If you haven't heard what this is about, one of your main characters, Kaz, is essentially a criminal prodigy who must put together a team of individuals with various skill sets in order to accomplish a deadly heist. So essentially, a team of misfits that probably need therapy. But I've heard nothing but amazing things about this duology, so I really hope that I do get to it this winter. This was also on my fall TBR. Guys, it's embarrassing, honestly, but I need to finish ACOTAR. I know that when I start this book, I'm not going to be able to put it down, so I just need to pick it up. So for completeness, this is primarily a fantasy romance series. As far as book 1 goes, to introduce you into this, you are following Feyre, who is a mortal living in poverty, and she kills a wolf while trying to hunt for food for her family, and the next day, a fae shows up at her door demanding retribution. So she is forced to go with him to his magical land that was only a legend to her in her youth. And honestly, the story takes off from there, okay? The story takes off from there. I put all of my holiday romances together, so let's get into them. The first up is The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary. Now this is a Christmas workplace romance. You are following two hotel receptionists who are arch rivals, and they compete to return a box of wedding rings they found to the rightful owners. I think in the process, finding love along the way. Next up, I have Always in December by Emily Stone. Now this is a Christmas romance, strangers to lovers, and someone said second chance. The overall synopsis is Josie lost her parents on Christmas night many years ago, and since then, every December she writes a letter and mails it to her parents, believed just at their old home address. But on her way this year to drop it off in the mail post, she runs into bicyclist Max. And one thing leads to another, and they end up stuck spending the holidays together. That's all we need to know. That's all we need to know. Next up, we have The Christmas Wager by Holly Cassidy. Now this is a Christmas romance, a small town romance, enemies to lovers story. You are following an LA-based real estate agent called Bella who has her eyes on this failing Christmas shop in a small town. This small town is Maple Falls. It is a cozy, sleepy mountain town, and when she shows up, she ends up striking up a deal with the shop owner's grandson, Jesse, and their deal is whoever wins the Maple Falls holiday games gets to decide the selling price. And on the back, right at the top, it says, first rule of Maple Falls holiday games, don't fall in love with the enemy. Guys, doesn't that sound so freaking precious? Next up, we have Snowed In for Christmas by Jacqueline Snow. This is a Christmas romance. They're neighbors, forced proximity, dual POV, grumpy sunshine? Say less. Now the synopsis is there is a snowstorm that leads Harrison, the main male character, offering Becca, the main female character, to stay with him to kind of ride it out. Now they've kissed, he got awkward. He doesn't really give the dating type, and he's a bit of a grumpy man. Now she is this sorority mom who is bubbly, quirky, and blonde, and honestly not used to men taking her all that seriously. So I think she just thinks, listen, let's have fun for a little, it doesn't have to be that serious. Next up, we have Meet Me Under the Mistletoe by Ginny Bayliss. Now this is a Christmas romance, childhood enemies, and a second chance story. The overall synopsis is this London bookshop owner is traveling back to her hometown for a holiday reunion. She runs into Isaac, her childhood enemy, and they end up having to spend time together during the wedding festivities, and eventually they start to find their common ground. I feel like this is just going to be such a cute story. And hello, London bookshop owner? Sold. Then we have So This Is Christmas by Jenny Holiday. Obviously a Christmas romance, but arguably a workplace romance as well. Strangers to lovers. Overall, we are following Mateo, who works for the Eldovian crown as a royal advisor, and we have Cara, who's flown in from America to help the king with his financial affairs. Now, Mateo is traditional, and he does not love Cara's brash American attitude. But over the holidays, they must work together quite a lot to get Eldovia back to its festive original state. Just like my Fall Rex and TBR video, I am throwing in the new releases section that has 6 books that are releasing between December and February that I definitely have my eyes on. There are 2 books in December. First one is Never by Jessa Hastings. Guys, fantasy romance, Peter Pan retelling. I had such a crush on Peter Pan growing up. I mean, I still do. Let's just be honest. I still have a crush on Peter Pan. But we know Jessa, and that girl is gonna tear your heart into a million pieces, and I'm ready for it. Next, we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. That is the second book to Divine Rivals. So we don't need to know anything about a plot here, but I'm gonna read it. Next, we have 3 books that are coming out in January. The first one is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I'm not sure how to say his last name. It is the same author as The Silent Patient, so it's also a mystery thriller. Essentially, a movie star and a group of her friends take this trip to the Greek islands, but that trip is upended by a murder. Sounds very gossipy. I'm excited. And then we have The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake, the 3rd book to the Atlas 6 and the Atlas Paradox. I am so excited for that book. I am so excited to see how things conclude. I believe it is the final book in that trilogy. And then we have Emily Wilde's Map of Otherlands by Heather Fawcett, the second book in Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So I'm excited. I don't know the plot of it. I just know that it will likely be a very whimsical, fun read as well. There's one book in February right now that I cannot wait for, and that is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. It is a sports romance, grumpy sunshine, athlete fangirl. From what I understand of the synopsis, you have Josephine and Wells. Now, Wells is a golfer, and Josephine is his #1 fan, is always there supporting him. And his golf game is going downhill, and he decides to end his career. Now, she's kind of lost because now she's like, what? Like, I kind of thought he was different. What do I do with myself? And he all of a sudden has the time to realize that Josephine has always been there for him as a supporter and just always, you know, there to just support him. That's what supporters do. Yeah. Anyways, he shows up to her doorstep with an offer that if she helps him train to get back into the game, he will give her some of the cash prize money, and she needs that money. So obviously they have to spend time together, but also, is it all that wise in the press for an athlete to be dating a fangirl? Okay, that wraps up my winter recommendations, the books on my TBR, and the new releases I am very much looking forward to. Hopefully you got some recommendations from this video. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.